What is up, everybody? Welcome to Bi-Weekly Community Call. We have a decent amount of stuff to touch on this week, mostly on the Pirex ETH side of things. The BD team has been busy and prepping a lot of partnerships. And then we also have an update on the Oracle side, which is pretty positive news. So we will start, though, by doing some governance housekeeping. So we have a proposal currently live on Snapshot, as most of you have seen. The voting ends tomorrow, around the middle of the day, my time. I don't know what that is, UTC, but it ends tomorrow. And so far, it looks like everybody is pretty much in support of the proposal. And the one I'm talking about is this RFF with Vector. And so this proposal consists of two proponents. One is kind of a treasury swap, but not one in the usual sense. It's purely centered around PXETH and their product vETH. And then the stage 2 of the proposal involves their vote escrow token that they plan to launch. I don't know, we could probably start with stage 1 here. I don't know if Funky or Sammy, which of you wants to cover it, but we can kind of walk through the numbers a little bit and explain what the goal is there.
Yeah, I can cover it. So yeah, I think as you were saying, it's termed as a treasury swap, but there's no funds actually changing hands. And at least for the phase 1, it's pretty simple. Basically, Vector Reserve, which allows people to mint vETH with various collateral assets, would onboard PXETH as a collateral asset, allowing people to mint vETH with PXETH, and they would take 250 of their ETH and then mint PXETH and then mint PXETH with that. And then on our side, we would mint 250 vETH with 250 PXETH. So they have 250 PXETH. We have 250 vETH. No funds have changed hands. And then we use those assets to create a pool on Curve, which we will jointly incentivize. And then following that, Vector will mint an additional 200 PXETH, which they'll use for liquidity provision in other parts of the Redacted ecosystem. So they'll use it kind of as a yield asset in that sense.
Yeah, so it's basically a TVL swap rather than a treasury swap.
Exactly. And yeah, I think the stage 2 has to do with a governance token and a hidden hand, and basically it allows them to have another kind of partnership on that end as well.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward once you actually take a look at everything. And we had, I know, a couple of questions in the Discord about like what our opinions on it were and stuff. And I think, in general, we feel good about it. We talked to the team before it went up on the forum, so they made sure to pass it by us to ensure that it wasn't like an insane proposal or anything. So overall, our view is positive on it. So I think, yeah, and I think everybody else in the Discord thought something similar. So it seems like it will pass as it stands now. But again, if you think otherwise or you are in favor of it, just please be sure to vote or leave feedback on the forum or whatever else. Yeah, we're happy to answer any questions around that. And then on the Pirex ETH side, I think we have a decent amount of updates we can give. This morning we had some decent sized deposits. I saw one for like 34 ETH and another for like 24 ETH. And so I think we're at around like 14.6-ish million TVL. There's around 5,200 ETH locked. So things are slowly and steadily climbing upwards, which is a good sign. And I think we have a couple of partnership updates we can give. But really quick, before we wanted to do that, I just want to highlight, and we've done it quite a few times. I know I made an announcement, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, regarding PancakeSwap. But PancakeSwap's one of the newer dexes we've expanded to, and I think we are actively bribing that market. And so it received some pretty good cake emissions, and either yesterday or the day before, it had like a 1,000% APR, even though there was like 70,000 TVL in the pool itself, but for whatever reason that LP wasn't staking. So I just want to put this back on everybody's radar that the the PCS pool is actually pretty good. It's receiving steady cake emissions. I think I don't know how long we plan to bribe into the future, but for now, it's like a pretty critical part of the strategy. So the other thing I wanted to add there is, please, if you are providing liquidity there, make sure to actually stake your liquidity to receive the rewards, and also make sure that you are properly in range, because if your liquidity goes out of range, you actually aren't eligible to receive cake rewards, which I think has been happening to a couple of people potentially. And I know their team recently reached out about launching something. Forgot what it was called. An ALM,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, basically kind of. So it's basically Pancake, the PX ETH pool, and Pancake is a V3 pool, which is a fork of Uni V3, and they said that they can help refer us to various liquidity managers who can basically help keep more liquidity within range.
Cool. So just wanted to give an update on PancakeSwap. I know we've been shilling it a lot lately. I think it's still one of the more like underserved opportunities in the ecosystem. But I think after I made the announcement and after we put out a tweet about it yesterday or the day before, a decent amount of TVL went in there and brought it down to like 40% APR, which is still high, but not as high as 1,000, obviously. So moving on, we can probably touch on the sort of broader PXE strategy and policy side that we're working on, because I know we have a lot of pools that we are cooking up. So I don't know, Funky, if you want to give just a broader update there on what we're kind of working on behind the scenes, at least to the extent that we can
Yeah,
share.
yeah. I think so. On the pool side, for those eagle-eyed, you can probably see that we have 3 new curve pools which were just added to Convex. We've gone through the whole curve gauge governance process. So we have a pool with ETH Plus, which is Reserve Protocol, XETH, and then a pair with MKUSD, which is the Prisma Finance stablecoin. And so for ETH Plus and XETH, we'll be doing joint incentivization there. So be a nice place for yields, because we're able to get basically more incentives for the sale, well, for TVL, so the yields should be pretty juicy there. I'm really excited about the MKUSD PXE pool, because we'll be added as a Prisma receiver, which means that we can bribe the Prisma holders and get Prisma emissions directly as well. And given that not too many partners have gotten this pool with Prisma, the efficiency is quite high. So quite excited about that. I guess the last thing on the pool side, I guess we could talk about, is we're working with Gyroscope to launch basically a concentrated liquidity pool on Balancer. And basically the difference with generic Balancer pools is that you just have more liquidity at specific points. So for a LSD like us, basically means that we'll be able to facilitate larger swaps with lower slippage. So pretty excited about that as well. And yeah, I guess the last point pertains to the Redstone Oracle, which we just got earlier this week. We're working with partners, including people like Arrakis, to find other ways of having concentrated liquidity, but also finding ways to incentivize liquidity more efficiently.
Yeah, and speaking of the Redstone Oracle, I guess we could cover that part now too. So I think the Redstone Oracle is finally ready to go. I think they've been, testing it on mainnet for the past few weeks, making sure that everything is running smoothly. And now it is pretty much ready. So that's a little bit of alpha. I don't think the announcement is going out until early next week. Keep it close to the chest. But now that that is live, we're able to start moving forward on a lot of the other partnership conversations that we have, especially as it pertains to like different borrowing and lending protocols, which is a huge piece, like broader liquid staking token adoption, because people need to be able to lever up on their ETH yield or just lever up in general. Leverage is kind of like makes the space go around, and you can't do that, or it's harder to do that without a price feed, especially for the majority of these protocols. So that's good news. the Redstone Oracle is ready to go, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll be seeing a lot more partnerships spawn from that simple price feed going live. And hold on, I see the town hall text chat. Anti-language model. Oh, geez, I think that was regarding ALM. So yeah, that'll be big, and I think we're in the process of still like working with Chainlink for the bigger one, which, as you all know, is kind of a prerequisite for the stablecoin launch, which is phase 2 of the Dinero rollout. Moving on, I think we can give an update on where we're at on the L2 expansion. I don't know, Sammy or Never, if you guys want to touch on where we're at with regards to like bridges and all the rest of the shit that is part of the L2 rollout.
Yeah, we're still pushing. I mean, the high level details have been concluded. Seems that there's a ton of demand, and now it's just mostly on execution. And yeah, the execution part is a bit sensitive, so just building out a model for exactly how we can execute and making it in a scalable way so that if we execute one partner, we can execute with all. And we already have like a ton of inflows coming from other L2s to do the same thing, especially the up and coming, optimistic L2s. So yeah, it's basically just kind of a joint venture thing between us and all those L2s, come up with a good and scalable execution plan. But like, yeah, the high level details have been figured out. The business partnerships have been figured out. So it's just now taking them from like saying yes to now pressing the button.
Nope. Okay. And with that, I guess actually we could probably do an update on Eigenlayer and Mode, just because we get a ton of questions about those two, because they are both critical aspects of Pirex ETH adoption. So really quick on the Eigenlayer thing, we still get a lot of questions about this, and so I know a lot of the people that attend this call are the same people that help answer questions and such in the Discord, so I guess it's important to keep everybody in the loop. There's no like behind the scenes stuff really going on right now. It's more of just a waiting game. All of you know just as much as we do. We're doing everything we can to not only make sure we're included in the next Eigenlayer vote, but that we have really good chances of succeeding on the inclusion in Eigenlayer. So we don't have any like behind the scenes secret dates. We don't have any insights into when their tokens launching. We don't have any insight really in any of that. So we're just doing all we can in the meantime to ensure that we are set up for success there. So that's the answer. The answer is there's not much that you guys don't know that we don't know. And it's just a waiting game. And so the bigger goal is making sure that we adequately increase TVL between now and the vote, because I believe there is like a minimum ETH TVL requirement in order for you to even be up for inclusion. And that's why the Mode partnership is so important. And I guess we could talk about that as well. I don't know if what is the minimum? I think it 15K ETH.
Yeah, it's 15K ETH.
Yeah. So
yeah, but I guess it ties into the most stuff you're talking about.
yeah, so that's where Mode and potentially other L2s become very important. And so we've had a lot of questions about like when Mode is actually going to start depositing ETH, and they shared it during their original launch announcement. So I think they are also doing this sort of phased mainnet rollout, where phase 1 is what is live right now. Phase 2, which I think comes either at the end of this month or at some point in March. So it could literally be any time between right now and the end of March. So this like next month and a half. Phase 2 is when they plan to start taking the assets that are bridged and then turning them into yield bearing assets. So one part of that they're doing with a stable coin. I don't remember what the stable coin is off the top of my head, but they'll be taking bridged stables and then turning those into
Athena.
yield bearing. Yeah, Athena. So they'll be taking bridge stables and then turning those into yield bearing stables through Athena. And then on the ETH side, that's where we come in. So they'll be taking the bridged ETH and turning it into staked ETH through Pirex ETH. So hopefully we'll have more details soon. Part of it is we also have to kind of like collaborate with them on building a solution to actually make this possible. I don't know if Never or Sammy, you guys want to share more details on that. I know we talked about it a little bit in the last call, but maybe we could do it again just to help people understand what we're kind of working on with Mode.
Yeah. What we're working on right now is kind of want to build like the big solution for all L2s kind of get native yields onto their chain. There's actually even a new chain that's going to be launching with us day one coming up. So that's like kind of super exciting that there's a ton, we have a ton of inbound from chains. And L2s, I think there's going to be the next 2-3 years going to be a ton of them opening. So we want to get this first execution right with Mode. We can even get a naive solution out and then kind of keep experimenting and making it better over the next year or two. So then when the big inflows of TVL on L2s goes from right now from 100 millions to these L2s to billions, we will be there and mature enough to basically be the only way that people can safely route their bridges. So that's kind of the status of where we are there. But yeah, whenever I was ready to trigger it, we will be ready to. So just getting ready for phase 2. Yeah, that's kind of the
update. Yeah, Ark, to answer your question, are we ready? Yeah, I mean, we will be ready by the time that mode is ready. So hopefully everything keeps going smoothly on their end. Obviously, there's 2 prerequisites for this whole relationship. One relies on us and one relies on them. So even though they said February, March as their phase 2 date, you can never you can't really predict the future. So something could go wrong on their end where they need to delay or whatever. So that's just something to account for. But hopefully we can just get everything going smoothly. There's no issues and the timeline stays perfectly intact. What about POCs with OPR, poly, etc.? I don't really know what you're asking, Ark. I think you might have to use less abbreviations. Once Mode deposit their ETH and APX ETH, I reckon we get a ton of inflow for PXE, so that's the other catalyst of partnerships. Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the beauty of the 2-token design, right? Once one side gets too lopsided, the yield on the other side seems pretty attractive, and so it has this balancing effect where TVL will flow between the two eventually until there's a sort of equilibrium across the board. But in order to get there, that requires a lot of TVL, and so yeah, the more TVL there is on one side of the equation, the more it attracts on the other side, which is a net positive for the system as a whole. And regarding other sort of network layer 2 related announcements, I guess we can kind of talk about this hyper network announcement we made yesterday, or really that hyper network made yesterday. Sammy, I know you're close to this, so if you want to kind of give some alpha regarding the hyper network announcement or relationship, that'd be cool.
Sure. So as you guys know, we said it on the last call that we're working with some other OPL2s on this bridging solution where they can be earning more native yield on the ETH that's bridged into the network. Mode Hyper Network is a new L2 that hasn't launched yet, I believe. Or they've launched some things. I think it's kind of like Mode where the chain is live but not the token or something like that. And yeah, it's more of a gaming focused chain. It's using ZK technology to help power some of the games that are going to be live on this L2 that they've been working on, more in the app chain world than a general purpose chain like Mode. But nonetheless, an OP stack chain that taps into a narrative that some of the other OP chains haven't tapped into yet. And the nice thing about the games is that they usually need a ton of ETH to get a lot of these things going, right? The gaming scene needs a lot of active liquidity to really power some of the stuff. So we expect that to be another big catalyst for us. And now that's 2 under our belt, and hyper. So there's still more in the pipeline as well. So happy we could announce that one and keep working on the L2 stuff.
Yeah, in general, I think the more of these that we can convince to start using Pirex ETH, the better. So the idea isn't to discriminate against whether they're big or small. I think this is just purely a volume game because it's impossible for us to predict which of these different OP chains is going to succeed the most. What's more important for us is that we are sort of embedded into their stack regardless. Because who knows, fucking Hyper might become the gaming L2 or something like that. And, the total amount of ETH that gets bridged over there could be huge or it could be small. It's not really of concern to us. It just allows us to, further entrench Pirex ETH into this sort of new OP expansion, if you will. What are you guys doing to create a monetary? Okay, I guess we can go into questions, by the way. So if anybody has questions, I can answer some of these, or we can answer some of these. First question we have is, what are you guys doing to create a monetary premium for PXETH? Frax is basically spearheading this by doing this positive sum thing with base pools to incentivize pairing with FraxETH instead of wrapped ETH. Is Redacted doing something similar? I guess we could start with that question. I don't know, Funky, if you have.
I mean, we are doing something similar. I mean, instead of doing it like in a smart contract right now, we're actually all these new convex pools, these co-incentivized pools. It's kind of, we're doing it in a different way, but at the end of the day, it does achieve around the same effect, right? Where we're pairing with these up and coming protocols, getting efficiencies from us and them, with both of us incentivizing them to do that. Then also our like biggest scaling like thing where we differentiate ourselves is to go and be the native L2 like LSD on mainnet, because we definitely believe there's going to be a ton of liquidity on L2s in the next coming years, and being like that bridge between ETH staking and L2 liquidity, that's kind of where we want to find edge.
Anything to add, Funky or Sammy? I saw you both unmute for this question.
Yeah, I can add some stuff. So for Imagine's question, I see you talking about the mempool stuff as well. So basically, the reasoning behind PXETH and the way that we can continue to differentiate it is obviously the 2-token model works up until a certain size where, you know, the yield gets back down to market rates. It will never go to zero because of Ethereum staking rates, but it'll come back down to market rates. And the way all of these LSDs are trying to differentiate themselves, for example, FraxETH or Stath or Reth or any of these other LSDs, is that they will use the same MEV strategy that everyone else is using, right? They'll use MEV boost and they'll get a bit of extra yield, and that's how they're able to like offer you a bit higher yield than like the rest of the market. Whereas with us, what you can actually do is just look at the other side of the spectrum, where people are paying tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a year for MEV protection through like something like Flashbots Protect, right? And eventually, what we're going to do with our RPC is enable an entirely new yield source with PXETH that doesn't exist with any of the other LSDs, that allows people to pay for that premium the same way they would with Flashbots, just in a more tokenized manner, where transactions that go through RPC, a small fee is captured on that and helps differentiate the PXETH yield from the rest of the market. Whereas instead of us trying to maximize MEV, we're trying to minimize it, and that premium that we receive from minimizing the MEV is what is powering and differentiating us as we continue to scale and release the whole Dinero product. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. And then Stripe says, here I was thinking Hyper was Hyperlock. Yeah, so Hyper is its own layer 2 network focused on gaming, and then Hyperlock is the sort of or adjacent product that they're launching on, I think it's Thruster, which is a DEX on Blast. Yeah, and Sammy mentioned that we'll be working with them on Hyperlock Hidden Hand Market. So yeah, I don't know, Sammy, if you want to touch on that a little bit more, the broader statement of HH markets for all Aura franchises.
I think this is in the original proposal where Aura was getting us to lock the Aura that we were receiving from them. As some of you guys know, like Aura is one of our biggest hidden hand markets, the biggest. I think we are tied with Bouncer, and their strategy is to launch more Aura-esque solutions for different dexes that are popping up, and they'll be hidden hand markets for all of them, just because we're close with the team and it's a very easy playbook for us. So I think they're doing one more after Hyperlock as well that they haven't announced yet. So we'll be there with them for that whole journey, whatever chains and dexes they decide to go for.
Cool. Virtual World asks, can we run a validator in Barachain? Well, anybody can run a validator on Barachain, I guess. I don't know. Is it whitelisted right now? Yeah, I don't know. I think us running a validator is probably the least interesting thing we can do at the moment. There's a lot of other cool stuff we can plan to do there. Let's see. Imagine. Okay, so Imagine says no, never. That's not what I meant. Frax's base pool mechanism works kind of like this: pair with Frax ETH. AMOs have liberty to mint more because of deeper liquidity, more trading fees plus emissions. Share with pools that pair it. So, do you guys want to have? Are you asking if we're going to have an AMO?
I think I can take this one. So we don't like the way that Frax ETH works is different than we do. We don't Frax ETH for every 10 ETH deposited into Frax ETH, they mint 11 Frax ETH, and then one of those Frax ETH is used for liquidity, which is why they're like POLs. They basically use that extra frax ETH to farm liquidity on curve and stuff like that. So we don't do that. And in regards to like the mechanism that they use with frax ETH, where if you pair your whatever with frax ETH, you'll basically get an equivalent of 4% extra incentives with frax ETH. We're essentially doing that, but more white gloves. That's why we're partnering with people like XETH and ETH Plus, and we'll be partnering with other people as well and doing a bit more bespoke incentives around that. But it's something we might do in the future. I think what Never, I don't want to speak for Never, but I think what Never is also alluding to is that there are also other ways that we differentiate ourselves from Frax by just focusing on L2s as opposed to base pool strategy.
Yeah, and Imagine also asks like a follow-up question regarding the private min pool. Sammy, I don't know if you have like details on that you want to provide, but like one thing I do want to touch on here is like with Dinero. So like a lot of people get caught up in like the very individual components of Dinero and then compare them to another just like individual product that's a sole product offering. One thing to remember is that Dinero is in its completion will be a full product suite. So the idea is that we could provide the complete Ethereum user experience under one roof. And so like there may not necessarily be like crazy innovation in each pillar that's just going to blow you away. But we think we can create small edges across each pillar that creates a very successful product suite, if that makes sense. So, Sammy, I don't know if you read that question and have more insight you want to provide on it. And if not, we can take it async and you can answer it in more detail later.
1 sec, let me read it. It'll be background and 90% of that will be shared with you. So what's Redacted actually doing differently? Yeah, do you want to talk a bit about it, Never? The RPC strategy and how it actually gets implemented with the meta transactions?
Yeah. By like having, like what Calls said, having these like small edges where we have a pretty efficient and really good working LSD, then you add in like a decentralized stablecoin. What users want, I'd say, maybe not the current users of Ethereum, but like imagining this out over the next few years, you want this one, go-to DeFi application where we think, first of all, like we think all these base pillars that we're building are like going to be super important for our future adoption. First, you have ETH staking. I think that's like basically the internet bond or like the internet central bank of like getting yields. So now we're like pushing this out, and the next due course is like how would users get a stable coin, get a stable unit of account and leverage. That's like basically what the second part of this rollout is going to be. And then once you have leverage, stablecoin, and kind of a bond, you want to interact with more like, let's say, exotics applications, and you don't want to do that through just through like the current UX, but you would want to allow users to like just sign messages, or like at the most you abstract all these kind of things that we take for granted today, but you allow these use cases through our mempool and our meta transactions. You can just do them through a stable unit of account, pay your fees, don't even like know which network you're on, and that's the stuff that we want to facilitate. But it needs basically the other two pillars for this to work. So right now we're just really focused on really scaling out that the first pillar, which is PXE, and then
Cool. So hopefully that addresses that. If not, we can take it async. That way people aren't answering deeper, more future-oriented questions on the fly. And one more question. This one's another one about premium block space, which we probably covered. So I'll give it another minute or so for anybody to work in any other questions. But really quick, I want to introduce Mr. Chang up here, who is the newest hire. And I don't know if you are aware of why we brought you up here, so I will give you a second to prepare. But basically, as per tradition for new hires, you have to provide a joke at the end of the community call. And everybody will decide whether or not the joke is funny or whether or not it's crickets or whatever. So far, we have a 0% hit rate on funny jokes. I don't think anybody has ever got on this stage and said a joke that was actually funny. But before you tell your joke, feel free to introduce yourself however you want to. Chang is working on BizDev here, Redacted. As you all know, we've kind of been working really hard to grow the BizDev team. That way we have all the firepower we need to grow Dinero. So anyways, take it away. Feel free to introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, hey everyone. I was working in DeFi back in 2021. I think I was always like pretty hyped about what Sammy was building back then, and throughout the bear market saw that like Redacted just, kept getting better. And then at Scroll, I did BizDev. So I started at Scroll in 2022. And of all like the LSTs and all these guys we talked to, stablecoin, whatnot, like Redacted really stood out to us, and really, really hyped about what's going on here. So really excited to be on this team with like some of the best people in DeFi. I haven't really thought about a joke, but
I'll answer a question in the meantime, and you can think about your joke. So you have about a minute.
I have something.
Okay, are you ready to tell it now?
Yeah. I don't know if it's funny, but lost $2 million in Snowdog back in 2021. You can check the Chang if you don't. Yeah, that's my joke, bro.
God, Jesus fucking Christ! That was a joke.
Community is
Come on, bro.
I'm getting off. I'm getting off this stage, man.
Throw tomatoes at this guy. No way. He says check the Chang. Oh my god. I don't know if you guys think we should let him go. Just let us know in the chat. Nuking butterfly now thing. Oh my god. All right, one person thought it was funny. One person thought it was
funny. Kick him off the stage, man. Kick this guy off the stage.
Thank you.
Well, we may give him a chance at redemption in the next community call. He could come a little more prepared. As everybody knows, Kupko had one or two encores during his joke era. So yeah, you can have a redemption arc maybe in the next community call. But anyways, we're kind of at the 40-minute mark, so we will wrap it up here. I don't know, Sammy, was there any last minute things you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to go through these. So the AMO question, now it's covered with crickets and tomatoes. From Imagine. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but are you guys gonna have an AMO, and if no, why? We are of the opinion that we should not be involved in the AMO space. I think we have a lot of. I think what you want with an LST specifically is you want something that's extremely risk adverse, conservative, and at the same time offers you that twofold, threefold higher yield that we can offer right now without having to get into rehypothecation or leverage or AMOs or anything else. And all of the fun games that can be done with just LSDs or stablecoins should be built around the protocol. So, for example, restaking, we're going to enable that with some of the restaking partners that we're talking to. The AMO stuff is actually live right now with our partners XETH. I know we didn't get into that today, but maybe we can get into it next time. So if you want to play the AMO game with PXETH, you can play that with our partners at XETH. The curve pool either just passed or it's on the curve forum right now. But we think with PXETH, it should be as safe and conservative as possible. And all of these things, believe me, we love playing these games too. But they should be enabled through third parties, just so that you can opt into the risk if you feel it. And then the other one was my question is whether offering premium block space implies that Redacted is also considering building blocks for non-Dinero validators, or would that premium block space only be provided by Dinero validators? So eventually you want the protocol to reach a stage where we can be building blocks, but obviously you need to have much bigger size in order to get into a position where we can consistently be building blocks, right? Which will not be the case for like a while, obviously, right? So it's not limited to answer your transaction, like to answer your question, like transactions that go to the RPC that get the treatment of the RPC are not limited to blocks that we build, even though if we can build the blocks, we have the luxury of like being at the top of the block for everything that goes to RPC. So hopefully that answers both the questions really quickly before we wrap up.
Well, yeah, I see Funky mentioned Hot Wheels' as grandma. So somebody sent a message the other day in general chat about how they sent a message to his grandma basically saying that Hot Wheels works at a very legitimate crypto company, and he actually sent that to his grandma, and it built a lot of trust between her and the company, and she's really excited about his future. So the more that people send those messages, the more we could send them to his grandma, and the longer that Hot Wheels can continue to work here and build cool stuff on the front end. So just something to keep in mind. But anyways, thanks all for the questions, and thanks for hanging out. Remember to send messages to Hot Wheels for his grandma, and yeah, we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Peace.